Hello and welcome to Market Psychology 101, where we look for value in the markets when there's fear and are cautious when there's greed. Today's video, I'm going to be doing my occasional indicator special, where we are going to look at Bitcoin through a variety of indicators and see if we can gain any extra insight on Bitcoin's current price action and where it may be going. Do know I am pre-recording this video, so it is possible that by the time it comes out a day later after I record, things may have been drastically different. But taking a quick look at the other sort of macro charts and indicators, fear and greed, we're still high up in the greed and still in this lower high trend, so I am still worried about one more pullback there. Seasonality indicators would show us that April and May tends to be good. And even though the summer overall isn't pretty hot, we can take a look at the year leading up to alt season in 21, that overall seasonality was pretty good. Same thing in 2017, that even though summers aren't hot usually, that on the way to alt season or the last year of the cycle, as we can take a look at this rainbow chart, in the last year to the top of the cycle, overall, even the summers did well. So if we see the summers doing well this year, maybe that's a sign of some things to come. All right, so taking a look at Bitcoin, we have a couple Fibonacci retracements here. These are the golden ratio indicators that we can use. And we can see that the macro Fibonacci, the height of the low, Bitcoin did get stuck at this line. That is the 1618 at around 102K. Never had candle bodies closing above it. However, when we take a look at the micro fib from the height of the low, we can see Bitcoin is stuck at this 618. The 618 is notorious for pullback areas, so get up to a 618, lower high, and then having a little bit of a pullback. But taking a look at the daily is still above the 618. So overall, that is a good thing for Bitcoin. All right, let's get into some indicators here. We'll get rid of some of these fibs here that you can see, just so things will look nice and clean. By the way, a couple of the indicators I like to use are the moving averages, the EMA 20, 50, 100, 200, and this buy-sell signal, the 10-20 moving average crossover with Heikin-Ashi candles. I am a Heikin-Ashi candle guy. The trend is your friend. I love these two indicators. What they show us here is that Bitcoin, it came down to the 50-week moving average and has had a nice bounce up, and that our most recent buy signal was here around the low 80Ks. If we take a look at the monthly, also we're getting a monthly buy signal too. So it's important to look at some of those macro time frames. This might be a really good thing. So since the bottom, when we've had these monthly buy signals, we've been followed up by half a year, if not more. I mean, look at this. That's almost a whole year of going up. So we have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about half a year, 6 or 7 green months. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So, 3/4 of a year up, a quarter of a year. It could be 4 months, 6 months, who knows? But overall, that has tended to be a good thing. But anyways, let's turn off those. Let's go through a list of our other indicators. A couple that I like to pair together, the Stochastic RSI with the MACD, and we can see we're going to stay in the weekly or even zoom out. We're not going to go to the daily at all, but weekly or monthly. The weekly stochastic is coming up a little bit. What I am sort of concerned about just looking at this now is if that stochastic gets too overbought and the MACD hasn't flipped yet, I do worry about what that might mean. But let's go back and take a look at the last time some MACD flipped. So the stochastic was already actually pretty high there. So maybe it doesn't matter as much as I was initially thinking. Yeah, I would say, this is kind of proving me wrong right here. Look at how high the stochastic was. And by the time the MACD flipped, when this MACD flips to green, that has been very good for Bitcoin the last few times. And the stochastic is higher. So once the stochastic starts getting in this area, if the MACD flips, maybe we are in for some good things for crypto. So I'm just going to go down the list of different indicators. If there are any indicators you want me to take a look at, please comment them below. One of you did comment, sorry I forgot your name, about an indicator. I looked it up. I wasn't able to get it because it cost some money. And he said he sent me a script. By the way, you can email me Market Psychology 101 at gmail.com. Let me just double check, make sure that is, yep, Market Psychology 101 at gmail.com. You can email me if you want me to take a look at anything more specifically. So let's take a look at, we're just going to take a look at some of these. Some of them I haven't even looked at in a while, so I'm not sure what to expect. So this one, really not giving me too much right there. Let's see, the heat map. The heat map is one I look at once in a while. And okay, when we get this dark blue heat map, or dark blue, what does that show us? Dark blue is typically things are cooling off a little bit. That's sort of showing me right there. I'm not going to read too much into this. If I feel like I don't know what I'm talking about too much or can't dissect it, I'll just leave it for you guys to interpret. But right there, I'm not going to spend too much time on that one. The Aurora Borealis Super Guppy one. It's one I do like because it is, I do like my trends, and overall, it is showing us that hey, the trend is still positive. When the green starts to squeeze, though, you do get somewhat concerned. But as it starts to get wider, and it does look like it wants to get wider, overall, that's a good thing. So we see, I'd say so far, seeing some things, um, leaning towards a positive direction. Bollinger Bands. I know a lot of people really like Bollinger Bands. Came down to that. Again, that was around the 50-week moving average, but we're right at the median moving average of the Bollinger Band. The upper area, it's around 104K. So, we need to get above that or start pushing that Bollinger Band up. So, still potential for the Bollinger Band right there in the middle of it. Let's see, bubble risk indicator. Don't think we have to take a look at that one yet. Super Guppy, this one's kind of like the one we saw before, the Aurora Borealis one. Not showing us anything different there. And let's see, we know crypto fear and greed. Let's take a look at Darvas Box. People like this for trading. So we were underneath the Darvas Box. Now we're just settling at the lower end. The upper end of the Darvas Box is there at 109K, which was the former all-time high. So that's interesting to think about. So, we can always get above the Darvas Box. And if we get above that 109K, Bitcoin's probably closing above that 1618 fib that I showed you at the beginning of the video. And, maybe moving towards that 2618 fib. If you're wondering where that 2618 fib, it's at around 155K. Talked about that in a lot of my videos. Don't want to go back and re-show the thing. So, subscribe if you want to hear more of the things that I'm referring to here, so it makes more sense. Don Chain Trend Ribbon, I do like this one. Overall in the weekly, it hasn't turned red in a while. So we are going up for quite some time. You can see here. Let's just map this out. So this was 2017. I mean, this say green, even though this was bearish as hell. On the way to the top, that was 784 days. Last cycle, on the way to the top, I mean, whether you take alt season 266 or 500, we are way above that right now. I know that for sure. So how much are we at? Yeah, so we're stretching this thing quite a bit. If you were believing that maybe we get more of a correction, something like this soon, and that the tops in 2028, we're getting a recession this year, this might be one of those to say, maybe be a little cautious, but these indicators can always do something different each time. They do not have to repeat, but that would be a concerning one, in my opinion. Double top, we don't have to take a look at that. Let's see. Let's do Hull Suite. Hull Suite is one I talked about before because when we get above this band, we do see, or since the bottom, we've seen Bitcoin go to higher prices. Here at the bottom of the cycle, it did go lower. Here went to the higher price. It got under the band. Okay, that was a good area to buy. And then once you broke through, you did get way higher. We went from 30K to 75K. Went under, corrected a little bit. Great time to buy in here. And then once we broke through it, 65K to 109K. So, another 40K up. Down here, is that a great time to buy? If we break through it, that would be, very, very promising. And it can always reject, by the way. It doesn't always have to keep repeating itself. But that's 98 to 99K. That's where the MACD will flip positive if we get through there. So this Hull Suite by Insilico indicator, love this indicator. Shout out to Silico. This and the MACD go very well together. So let's keep going down. Log regression, we've talked about this one, but it's worth noting that this is where the tops have gone into. It's like our Bitcoin rainbow chart. And so if we were to get into that log regression, let's say you believe in a 4-year cycle, I'm going to match it up someone with the dates at the bottom. That's 210K, 150K. That's the 2618 to the 3618 fib right up here. So we talk about this one a lot. I do think that shows potential for Bitcoin. Let's go back to this. When do we get alt season the last 2 cycles? When Bitcoin's too expensive to buy, and then it rotates. So that's the too expensive to buy area in that log regression band, 150 to 210K. That's the area I am looking for. Let's see, we took a look at the MACD. Let's take a look at pi cycle, high, low. So pi cycle, people ask about the pi cycle, and I don't think it's going to flip this cycle top, and I'll show you a couple reasons why. So you can see how, and this is just my conservative guess, but you can see how even in this rainbow chart, when we've been overbought in the past, we're becoming less overbought over time. But not just that. So we have that regression. So this is 2017. We get the pi cycle trigger when the lower moving average moves above the higher moving average. Okay. And so last cycle, it did that just briefly, and we did get a pi cycle trigger there. But overall, I don't see it coming up quite to that area again. But the upper moving average. So I'm not saying we have to get the pi cycle trigger, but this upper moving average right here is at around 155K, which again is that 2618. Because this keeps popping up, for any of you new viewers, this is why I'm actually going to take a second here to redraw it. Try your fib, high to low, take it off log. Look where that is. That is the 2618, 155K. Okay, it's not totally perfect, but and also, yes, this will move up if Bitcoin starts going up as well. So this is the 3618. So that's why I'm looking at this area. Matches the log regression, matches the pi cycle area. Not that we have to hit that pi cycle trigger, but that is something to watch for. As far as potential, we could always go down if things all of a sudden got recessionary. So do know, because we have these targets there, doesn't mean we have to hit them soon. Maybe the top is another 4-year cycle. Maybe it's 2028. I don't know. But that's just where the targets could be. RSI, let's just take a look at this. So we do have this on the weekly. This is concerning. We do have lower strength. We'll see where this gets to. If we're seeing lower strength, higher prices, that is bearish divergence. It has something to watch out for. Now we get bearish divergence. I mean, let's take a look at this here. We have massive bearish divergence even on this monthly scale, but it doesn't mean that we can't get higher prices. So, right there, like, could we hit this again? This is something to watch for, by the way. Just doesn't mean price can't go higher, but that divergence, it can take a while to play out. So just keep that in mind. We'll take a look at different RSIs here. Reverse Cutler RSI, this is a nice one. People like it because, when we get these bars, those are pretty close to the tops and bottoms. Not that it has to call the exact top, but, if we get another one of those marks, wouldn't doubt if it's at that 150K. Or if it gets below this, I'd say when the RSIs are getting under the midway point, that's when I do get concerned. So it's right at that midway point. That is something to watch for. All right, let's keep going down. Yeah, lots of different, I like a lot of these different RSIs. Let's see, does this one show us anything? Maybe this is more of a volume bar. Yeah, not going to spend too much time with that one. I do have a volume-based support and resistance zone. I do like this one. And certainly, yeah, this one's not working for here, but for some of the other like stocks and altcoins, I do take a look at this one and see, how they match up with moving averages and fibs. Okay, so the volume based support resistance zone, I do like this one. But because it's not work for Bitcoin, we're not going to spend too much time with that one. All right, let's keep going down here. Stochastic RSI, we talked about this one before. Let's take a look at the monthly. So the monthly, I'd say, this has me I said this in yesterday's video or Monday's video. Micro bearish, macro bullish. We can still see price correct a little bit before flipping up. So I think that falls in line with that, at least on the monthly scale. I'm not feeling, overall bearish or anything. I don't think bullish or bearish is a bad thing, but it's important to keep those things in mind. Super trend. This is an important one because if we break underneath the super trend, it's very bad. So the super trend here is at around 69K. What's kind of curious about this 69K area is that it's also the 236 pullback. We have to put our fib back on log scale because we're not looking at price targets above. But that 236 fib and the super trend, that has to hold. So if we get underneath that, then I'd say that fits inside the 2028 cycle top narrative that, I've contemplated this, that we did technically make the all-time high last cycle was technically in March 24. So sometimes I play with this idea. Did that reset the 4-year cycle? And are we going to get a 4-year cycle from this point instead of, Q4 of the post-halving year? So yeah, we had a cycle top here, we had all season here, but I do wonder if this changes things. It's just a playful idea I have, not saying it has to come true. But I think it's important to have in mind, the most bullish and bearish scenarios, so we're prepared for it. No one knows what's going to happen in the markets as much as people like to say they do, but it's good to view things with a macroscopic lens, and you ultimately decide from there. Um, we don't have to do that one. Let's take a look at the ultimate RSI. I do like this one, especially on the monthly. The monthly, I do like this one, and kind of like we showed with the regular RSI, the ultimate RSI, in my opinion, still has room to run. So, where is Bitcoin price going to be if it hits up here? It hasn't hit up there yet. Not saying it has to either. I mean, it could even get above, but that is another one I am watching for. And let's see, do we have any other indicators? We looked at volume. We'll end with this one. We do not have a confirmation buy signal here. Well, that's the monthly. We don't need that. We overall are still in the monthly. Let's take a look at the. Okay, so this is good. This is on the weekly. This is more of a confirmation buy indicator. UT bot alerts. I use this when things are more bearish. Um, it's the other buy sell signal indicator I use. This one, the 1020 MA, more of a front running indicator. This one, if you're more cautious or risk adverse, would be better for you. But it did trigger last week, and we are still within range of that. So I don't like this one as much unless we are super bearish. So yeah. Anyways, let me know what you think in the comments below. Again, if you have any indicators you want me to add, please comment in below, or email me marketpsychology101 at gmail. And yeah, whoever commented that one, thank you for sharing that. I I did a very extensive Google search, which took me all about 5 minutes. I couldn't find a way to get on there, so apologize for not having it on there. It looked like it would be a cool indicator, by the way. But if you have one that is free that we can take a look at, comment them below. But yeah, let me know what you think. How does this have you feeling? Hey, I've been talking about recently. I'm feeling micro bearish still a little, but very macro bullish still. Do you feel same, different, and why? So thank you so much for watching, and have a great day. Take care.